So the project for today is the rear wheel bearings on the Focus. They were growling away. Turns out this was the actual one that was bad, but since the car has 300,000 miles on it, I figured both of them need to go get replaced. So the wheel bearings are in the rear brake drum right here. In here, this is the bearing in the middle. It's a big, thick bearing, about that long. It's actually a double bearing. There's two rolling sleeves inside with one main sleeve on the outside. Never seen anything quite like that, but and this drum is held on with a big nut on the outside. Nut obviously goes on the shaft here. I'll show you that when I go to put it back together. So I've cleaned all this up, made sure that this surface right here that the bearing rides on is nice and smooth still. There is a seal here on the back side, kind of hard to see here. There we go. Yeah, back in here is a seal. That's rubber. You can get new ones. This one looks like it's intact. Seems to be pretty decent still. So I'm just going to leave it, put some more grease on that, grease everything up, and then slide it back on. Okay, so I've got the drum back on there. There's a nut in the center there. I believe it's like a 19 millimeter. That gets torqued to 175 foot-pounds, which is a whole lot. You want to be spinning that drum as you're torquing it down just to make sure the bearing seats correctly. Obviously, I greased the spindle before I slid the bearing on there. I greased the bearing on the inside with a bunch of grease. I pumped some grease in underneath the washer that's under that nut just to give it some grease there and keep everything lubed up. Now I've got it back on. This side actually drags a bit. The pads drag, or the shoes drag a bit back here on this side. The other side spins really nice, but I'm not too concerned about it. In right there, it's torqued back in. Next, your cap goes back on here. And these get damaged a lot when you try to pull them out because you try to get a screwdriver in the edge. So I'm going to pound that back out, make it as round as I can again before I tap it in there, because it does keep the water and everything out of that bearing cavity. Keeps the bearings, makes them last longer. If you don't torque the bearings, that's a good way to make the bearings will not last as long if they're not torqued down right. Just throw them on with an impact or something like that. You're either going to get them too loose, generally too loose, or too tight, but most of the time most impacts won't go that heavy, so you're going to get them too loose and then they're going to wear out prematurely. So and when you're torquing them, another good thing to remember is after you're done torquing with your torque wrench, back that torque wrench back down to its lowest setting. That's helps keep the torque wrench springs inside there in good shape. If you leave them under tension all the time, they're going to get a set to them, and then your torque wrench isn't going to be as accurate anymore. So I want to put the bearing caps back on, put the tires back on, and this car is going to be ready to go. It's all set. It's going to be put up for sale. See if I can't get a little bit of money out of it. It's a nice little car, even though it's got like 300,000 miles on it. But aside from the water that was inside of it, it's in good shape. This dent is the only real body damage on it. So we'll see what I can get for it, put it up for sale, and move on to the next project, which is going to be that transmission change that I've got coming. Like a 90 Chevy with a stick shift and a V6, and it needs a clutch change actually. So that'll be the next project.